Good morning, good morning. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Peah, Perek Vav, Halacha Aleph. We're learning today Daf Nun. We left off on Daf Nun, Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. And the first topic of today's Daf will be about Hefked. Let me quickly review the machlokes between Avmeir and Rabbi Yossi that we quoted yesterday. We have this in the Dorim. In the Bavli, it's on Daf Mem Gimel. And the question over there, the topic over there, is that when an object is declared hefker, everyone has the understanding it's right away ownerless. Really, it's subject to a machlokes. Rav Meir holds, and we paskin like Rav Meir. If I declare this is ownerless, it's right away hefker. Whenever someone takes it, then they will own it. Rabbi Yossi holds that even when a person declares something as hefker, hefker means that my grip over it is loosened, allowing anyone to take it from me when they take it. But prior to them taking it, it's still mine. The nafkamina we spoke yesterday, it's not negeya now, but let me add a couple of layers. Based on this, the question now will be, if someone declares something hefker, can they retract? And that's clear. According to Rav Meir, eino yachal lachzor bo, because hefker means he doesn't own it. Remember this, Chevra. According to Rabbi Yossi, even after I declared this hefker, prior to anyone taking possession of it, let Rabbi Yossi, yachal lachzor. Another nafkamina. Now let's bring it back home over here. We began this perek by quoting the source that we quoted from the Yerushalmi. The halacha is that produce that's made hefker will be exempt from maisros because it's ownerless. Now, what happens if the owner declares it hefker and the owner takes it back? L'Rav Meir, pater mi maisros, because it became ownerless. The fact that the owner took it back doesn't change anything. According to Rabbi Yossi, if a person declares something hefker and they take it back, it's not only Rabbi Yossi yachal lachzor bo. More than that, when he took it back, it never really left him. Perhaps we're going to go with the shita Rabbi Yossi. It's going to be chayiv b'maisros. Another din of hefker, guys. You have to remember all of these din. There was something called declaring an item hefker for a limited amount of time. Now let me tell you what that would mean. If I declare this is hefker for a limited amount of time, if someone takes it during that time, it's theirs forever. A limited amount of time means that I'm saying that if no one takes it within the next 3 days, automatically it comes back to me. Everyone subscribes to such a hefker. What will be the topic of today's stuff? And this is the final Hadama. Guys, I know whoever came on late, you're going to have to chop all of these steps. What we said until now is all midoiraisa. All midoiraisa. The Chachamim were afraid that someone who's trying to get out of the chiyuv of maisros, chashin and laha'arama, subterfuge, that's the fancy English word, he's going to be false. Imagine, I have produce, I'm going to declare it hefker. We said Rav Meir, and we paskin like Rav Meir, that even if I take it back, it's going to be pater mi maisros because it became ownerless. I'm going to say it hefker, I'm going to right away chop it back, and I'm going to be pater mi maisros. The Chachamim don't allow that. And the Chachamim have that koyach. And we're going to go into details of this today. And the Chachamim midrabanan say that if I myself took it back, it's going to be chayiv and maisros. The question will be, guys, we're going to go over this on side, is do we have the same drabanan if someone is mafkir something for a limited amount of time? Everyone subscribes that I could be mafkir something for a limited amount of time. Like, this is hefker for 3 days. Do we have the same chayshin and laha'arama or not? We'll see why yeah, why not. That will be the question, the only question that we're going to have in the topic of hefker. Before we move on with other introductions, I want to say the following. That we mentioned yesterday when we began this topic of hefker, is hefker, it's ownerless. With Rabbi Yossi, it's not ownerless. And therefore we mentioned how would bittul work According to Rabbi Yossi, now we're standing before Pesach, we say in the Nusach of Bittul that it should be hefker ka'afra da'ara. How does that even help? How does that even help? Let Rabbi Yossi. Now I know we don't paskin like Rabbi Yossi. So there is an Amban that says over there in Pesachim Davavam and Beis when Chazal tell us that Shnei Devarim Einon B'Reshus Shel Adam. Let's speak about chametz b'Pesach. The fact that the Torah says it's asur b'hana'ah, normally that should mean I don't even own it. You know, when I make something asur b'hana'ah, if I make something, I make a neder, and I say that it's asur for me to have hana'ah from this, it becomes hefker. Because if I cannot have hana'ah, I have no ownership over it. So why am I b'chlal lo even bal yirah bal yimatzah? HaTorah asan ki ilu hu b'reshuso for him to be oiver b'shnei lavin. And therefore, that Ramban says that even if we're going to learn that bittul is hefker, and even let Rabbi Yossi that hefker doesn't mean that I don't own it. It just means someone else can take it. For chametz, it's going to be good enough because really it's not mine to begin with. It's only that ason atos of ki'iluhu b'reshusay. For that, it's enough for me to say hefker ka'afradana. Just want to close that topic up. Anyway, so we're going to have the first, the bulk of today's daf will be about hefker. We're going to mention, if we'll have time, it's a short daf. I want to speak a little bit about Yush, if we'll have time. Exactly what is Yush? This is a topic. There's a Tosfos and Bava Kama daf Samach Vav Amadalav that says that Yush is not exactly hefker. I want to get back into that. And then on Amid Beis, we're going to go to the second topic of the Mishnah, of the beginning of the Spedic. The second topic was that a person has a modern of one cup. It was one bundle of 4 cups. And he forgot that one. And by Shammai says, Eino Shikron. Beisilo says it is Shikron. We already learned the Marafulda that quotes the Gemara, but really what we will learn today is that there are 2 options why Beishamai says what he says, and the Gemara will clarify it's not either or, it's only the one that we learned about. Royin. We're gonna chazir this when we learn this inside. That will be the side that God willing will come up to the halach base. We're gonna come up to the Daf Nun Aleph, Amad Aleph over there by the Mishnah. Okay, without any further ado, it's amazing how much information you need to chap this Gemara over here. So again, we have Rav Meir, Rabbi Yossi. We said Rabbi Yossi, Yochol Lachzer. Don't forget. That means that if a person declares something hefker, since he really still owns it, he can at any time before someone takes it say, "I'm chayzer, I regret." L'Rav Meir enu Yochol Lachzer. Therefore, L'Rav Meir, clearly, if I make something hefker, since I cannot retract my hefker, if I wanted to have to make a new kinyan, if I make a new kinyan, midoy raisa, it's patur mimaisis. It was hefker, mamash hefker. Now I took it back. And as we'll see again, going to Yerushalmi, midrabanan. The Chachamim says, "You're kidding. Every person will get out of tumas umaisis. He'll make hefker. He'll take it back the second later. No one else will have a time to take it." So midrabanan, they said that even though the owner took it back, we said he had it in mind lachatchila. If he had it in mind be'emes, who cares? But maybe the whole thing was just to get out of tumas umaisis. Midrabanan is chayv umaisis. And finally, there is a concept of being mafkir something only for a limited amount of time. Now, that does not mean that if I say this is hefker lizman, let's say I said for 2 days, that after 2 days, if you took it, it comes back to me. No. It means that if during that zman someone took it, it's theirs forever. But if no one took it, even though I didn't take it back, automatically it goes back to me. Okay. So says the Gemara, guys, Daf Nun, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. At Kedoim, Kishiv Kira Lizman Meruba, the din of Rav Meir. Number 1, Einoi Yochol Lachzer Boy. Hefker means it's right away ownerless. And therefore, if the owner takes it back, the owner is going to be Mido Oiraisa, Pater Mimaises. We're going to read this all in the Pnei Moshe. Mid Rabbanon, he's going to be Chayv and Maises. That is when a person is mafkirit. Zman meruba means 2 things. Zman meruba, or even better, hefker stam. Hefker sman, or even if a person says this is hefker for a year, if someone takes it in a year, it's automatically going to be mine. That's hefker. So at Kedoin, we know. What do we know? We have to read the Pnei Moshe. Guys, keep your finger on the Gemara and go on the Pnei Moshe. We're starting 11 times from the top, 11 lines from the top of the Amid. Still in the middle of the narrow lines. Ad Kedoin, Bishe Hefkira, Veis and Pei is intertwined over here. Lisman Meruba, let Rav Meir Hu de Kaboy. Rav Meir is the one that holds Eino Yachal Achzer Boy. We just explained these words, guys, why? Because Rabbi Yossi, since Rabbi Yossi holds that after you're mafked, prior to anyone taking it, it's still yours. You can be choizer. Okay? And if you can be choizer, what does it mean, Danny? It means that if you take it back, you're going to be chayv in maisvus. But according to Rav Meir, that says in a yachal achzer boy, so ad kan lo shamanu elam b'shkehivke lizman meruba. That what? Ad kan shamanu what? That midarabanan chayshin and laharama, and you'll be chayv in maisvus. The tama the lizman meruba. 1 second. If a person is mafked lizman meruba, if he says I'm mafked for a year, I take it back, not forever, for a year. And if no one takes it until a year, then it comes back to me. Do you think a guy who wants to own it back would make such a statement? Of course not. There's no haram. And therefore, the point will be is that when you take it back, you're pater mimaisis, even midrabban. The Talmud, the Bisman Meruba, like Chashash Harama, the name of Shema Hemed Bedavid Lafkira Kidei Lepater Min Hamaisis, V'achar Kachizko Hu Atzmai. And as we'll learn soon, the first line under the Gemara in the Pnei Moshe, Umechashash Zeh, when we do have this Chashash, the Chachonim said, Loi Leheve Hefker Kal Kvod L'Kil L'Kama. So ha meaning if a person makes a declaration of temporary hefker, but for a year, then you're kidding? Why would he do that? He'll be afraid if his intent is to take it back. Someone else will take it. That we know on that day, he had in mind to be mafkid. And now he wants to retract, which is why he's taking it back. That's the din of Rav Meir, meaning if you want to be choisid, you have to make a new kinyan. And therefore, let me just fear those guys. And therefore, if the guy takes it back, what's going to be the din? Pater mi maisres, it was hefker. Even midrabanan, now he took it back, it's pater mi maisres. So that is clear. Now keep your finger in the Pnei Moshe. Go back to the Gemara. Abel, what is the question? Hitkidal is man mu'ad. What does it mean? Look inside the Pnei Moshe. But if he's mafkir something for a limited amount of time, and it says man mu'ad, it's a small amount of time. This is the question. Maybe his intent was never to make an hefker to begin with. It was only laharama. Let's say a guy says it's hefker for one day, and he understands that no one is going to know. Who's going to know? And no one will have time. No one is going to come. And therefore, v'loy have a hefker l'patrim mimaisres, v'yehe yochel lachzer boy legamrei da'adayin le'nim berefkeroi. Maybe even though Rav Meir holds hefker means in a yochel lachzer, because of the rabbinic chashin and laharama, maybe they made a geseda. It's not hefker, and therefore two dinim. Number one, they don't even have to make a kinyan. The yochel lachzer, the guy, okay, you can just take it. I own it. I change my mind. And the ikid is he'll be chayiv in maises. He'll be chayiv in maises. Oydilma afilo hifkel is man muad einu yochel lachzer boy. V'kosal kadaita chashta de behifkel is man nama ikal mechash l'ramoyin. In other words,
Rabbi,
yes.
why didn't the Rabbanim?
I cannot hear, Kaya. I can't hear you. Speak louder, please.
Why didn't the rabbis ask him to publicly make it hefker?
Why did the rabbis what?
Why doesn't he publicly make it hefker?
So this is really very good. So the emes is like this. There's a whole other topic. When you make something hefker, do you have to take it out of your possession? Do you have to make that declaration in front of a few people? This is a bigger topic, okay, that I know, Kevan, you're touching on. there are so many different opinions of Rishonim. Let me go back to my example of Chametz and Pesach. I know we already mentioned it might not be the same. We don't take it out of our possession. We don't have to make that declaration in front of people. And based on that, there's a chashin and laharama. No, the Chachamim are not going to change the way you make things hefker. The Chachamim are going to say that whenever there's chashin and laharama, then we're going to say the whole hefker is not a hefker. The question of the Gemara is, and again, what happens if you make hefker for a limited amount of time? And in this itself, if it's lizman meruba, vaday loy chashin and laharama. And therefore, Rav Meir, who says, Eino yachal lachzor boy, if he reacquires, he's potter mimaisves. But maybe lizman muat, maybe chashin and laram. That's the question. And the Gemara's answer is that nashmeina minado. I'll find you a resolution from the following brayso. The brayso says like this: Hifker asodeu. If one was mafker asodeu, again we're speaking about someone who made it hefker lizman. Shnayim u'shloisha yamim. The brayso says befedish that what that chayzer boy. Okay, one second. The brayso, let me clarify. The brayso is not speaking about someone who made hefker for a small amount of time. He was mafker something stam, and then he reacquired it. That's the case of the brayso. If he reacquires it in the first few days, let me tell you better. Forget about reacquiring it. He changes his mind. A person declares something hefker, he has the right to nullify his declaration. That's what the Brais is telling you. Why? Look inside the Pnei Moshe again, or on 14 lines from the bottom. After you make a declaration of hefker stam, within the first 2 or 3 days, chayzer boy. How can you retract? And the Pnei Moshe is sharing the sheet of Rabbi Meir, and we pass him like Rav Meir. How can you retract? This is the whole point. When you make something hefker, stam, there's always be some midrabanan. Maybe the guy made it hefker only to take it back. So rabbanan tikinula b'pnei haramoyim sheroitzim la'avkiya. So the same and maisves. And what do they do to get out of maisves? That mafkirin v'chayzim v'zoichem b'hem lefikoch amru chachamim. The law have a hefker at shloisha yomim. You know to what point that even v'im yisku b'hem, if the owners take it back, lo you kazoichem and a hefker. And yes, these chayvru b'maisves. So because of the ha'arama chashash, when you make something hefker stam, you can retract within a few days. That's a big statement. Okay. Now, when the Brais Yerushalmi is looking, in other words, it changes the whole hefker. Brais is saying when you make produce, guys, this is produce. It's only, I'm saying dafka produce because on produce, there's a concept of chayva maisers, patim maisers. If I say this is hefker, there's no harama. Hefker is hefker. Even let Rabbi Yosi, if someone takes it, he takes it. But by produce, because of the Rabbanan, Chashin Allah by hefker stam. Now, the first topic is, when it says 2 or 3 days, is it dafka or lav dafka? So says the Gemara that Tonei, Rabbi Shimon, not the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but Rabbi Shimon of the Yama, he said in front of Rabbi Ze'era, Afilu la'achar shloisha yomim. I know there's different girsa'os. We're going to follow the girs of the Pnei Moshe. We're going to learn the Pnei Moshe. That what? It's not dafka 3 days. In other words, this chashash of Ramoyin, because of it, even if it's more than 3 days. Now, how much more than 3 days? And this is a classic, it's Rab Shimon de Yama's Moida. At some point, you can't say that this guy had in mind to take it back because he didn't take it back. Why would he do that? You're saying 2 or 3 days, maybe more. Okay, maybe 5, okay, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, maybe a year. Ein lo davar soif. By all of the shiurim, you have to give a shiur. So the counter against it's more than 3 days. So Rab Ze'era said, no, okay, if you're saying that the words of the Brais are lav dafka, so you tell me what's the cutoff. He la'achar shloisha he la'achar kama. In other words, then the same thing should be and a chanami after 3. After 3 means ein lo davar soif. And you know what? Hefker becomes meaningless by produce, and no one says Hefker is meaningless by produce. Okay. So in other words, there's a machlokes whether it's 2 or 3 dafka. And by the way, one of the reasons why Rab Shimon the Yama says lav dafka, because why does it say 2 or 3? In the Bible, you have if it's 2, say 2, and if it's 3, why do you say 2? So that was how you could from these words of the Braisa, unlike the Sefer that we're going to learn in a moment. 2, 3, he says maybe means 4. All he says is no, maybe 5, and then maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe 8. So 2, 3. Okay. Now, guys, how does that answer our question? You'll see in a moment. So for that, now that we see that there was a debate whether the Braisa, speaking about Hefker Stam, that you owner can retract within 2 or 3 days. That means even though someone else took it, you can say no, because since the Rabbanan Chashin al Harama, it's not even after until a certain amount of time passes. So the Gemara says that Lishon Masnisa Masayel Rab Zeira, that the Lashon of the Sefer of the Braisa will prove the side of Rab Zeira that 3 is dafka. Turning to Daf Nun Amud Beis, guys, we're going to come back to our question, mamish, in a moment. Now, I know we learned the Pnei Moshe. We can go to the Rashirilio, and we're going to learn every piece of the Gemara with the Rashirilio. Continues the Braisa. In other words, when do we say that even though you said something is hefker? And guys, Rav Meir, and we paskin like Rav Meir, that says generally, not by produce, that in a yachalachser, it becomes ownerless right away. But yeah, because of Chashin al Harama, that yachalachser you can retract within a few days. That's only b'shehifker stam, clarified, like we began today sharing the Hagdama. There's hefker stam, and then there's hefker lizman. Sodi mufkeres yoyim echad. That's the zman muat. He made something hefker for 1 day, or 1 week, Shabbos achas, or 1 year, or a cycle of 7 years. In other words, the Braisa is saying any type of hefker lizman. The Braisa gave 2 examples, Daniel. Zman muat, 1 day. Zman meruba, 7 years. The Braisa is going to clearly say that there is never chayshinan laharama by hefker lizman muat. The words that we'll learn in the Rashirilio is because any rabbinic enactment is not made on something that's lo shchicha. It's very rare that people make such declarations. B'chlal. So even if this guy had in mind laharama, I mean, the whole midoraisa hefker is hefker. Period. The chachamim have a koyach hefker bezin hefker, whatever they want, however you will learn how they do it, and they know your hefker is not chashin laharama. They never made it on a hefker lizman. Im actually zacham bein hu bein achar. If no one took possession of it, then Yachal Lachzoir, as we're going to read in the Rashirilio. Let's read the whole thing in the Rashirilio. Guys, don't forget, Rav Meir, Eina Yachal Lachzoir. Look inside the Rashirilio from the top. It's a Kmamash Hemshech of the Braisa, where Rab Zeira and Rab Shimon the Yama were debating. No, it's 2 steps. The Chachamim were Chashin al Harama, and therefore they said it's not really hefker. So at least the guy can say, if it's not really hefker, then I can be chayz. If no one took it, loyhu v'loy achar b'toydas hefker. If no one took it, yachal lachzer boy. What does that mean? Not that he takes it back. He can say, I retract my hefker. V'loy mit any rights she hefker. Which means it was never hefker. It was always his. If someone else took it, he can never retract. That means if someone took it within the 1 day, if he took it back within the 1 day, clear, that's clear. If you took it back, you'll be potem mimaisis. The whole Chashin and Laharama does not exist by Hefker Lizman. The Tama Mishum, why not? The who's Mafker Lizman? The Ein Darkan Shobani Adam Lahafker Lizman. Umishumachin. Ki Hadr V'Zacha Balabais, when the owner takes it back, Patim and Amaisris, even if you took it back by Yoim, right, Kevan, even though we can say maybe he had in mind to do it, maybe, doesn't matter. The Chachamim never speak about unusual cases. Clearly, when it speaks about Hifka Lizman, Shma Inon, so the Rashi really already shows you how this answers our boy of Tafnun Amadal. We don't yet see how does Rab Ze'eda prove that in the Reisha 2 or 3 days is Dafka 2 or 3 days and not more. The Gemara is going to speak it out in a moment. Okay. Another interesting nuance. Another din that even though we said that let Rav Meir and we pass like Rav Meir by hefker, you right away don't own it. It's ownerless. The Eina Yachal Achzad. Now we learned another nuance that whenever you make a hefker lizman, if no one yet took it, you can be chayzer. Chayzer means it was never hefker. So that's another thing we didn't speak in the intro. Okay, but that's not to get to our shayla. Now keep your finger on the Rashi Elio, and now let's figure out in the Gemara. It's again. Chiddush hefker lizman yachal achzer boy. Like we mentioned, even if I made it hefker yoyim echad, even if I make it hefker yoyim echad, I can't be chayzer means it's really hefker. You know what it means if it's really hefker? That if I take it back, I'm patur mimaisves. So from here we learn many things, says the Gemara. Number one, hada amra, who's mamruba, who's mamua. That's the answer to our boy. Chashin and laharama. This chiddush that we learned today is never said for a hefker lizman. Hada amra lechash alaram. And now hada amra, another thing that we learned from the seif of the Braisa. So adam mafkir v'choyzer v'zoicha. In the case of hefker lizman, meaning it will be patur mi maisres. It will be patur mi maisres. And also hada pshita she'elti that Rab Ze'eda can refutes Rab Shimon the Yama. How? I'll tell you what. Because Rab Ze'eda, who the Amar is Mameruba, who Zman Muatu, through 2 or 3 days. If you don't agree to 2 or 3 days, what did he tell him? Then maybe 4 days, maybe 5 days, maybe forever. How do you prove it? He doesn't speak out. I'll tell you how you prove it. Once the Braisa speaks or uses many dates, because in the Sefer you have 1 day, right? You have 1 week, 1 year. If the Braisa only would have said 2 or 3 days, again, why would you say Lav Dafka? Because it says 2 or 3. 2 or 3. But in the Sefer, the fact that we give a wide spectrum of time, 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, 1 day, that everything has to be Meduya. You understand, Shloim? It was when a Braisa begins giving different times, that everything is Lav Dafka, the whole Braisa falls apart. So whenever you have a question whether that time is mediuk, if that Mishnah, that Braisa gives other Zmanim, if there's many Zmanim, every Zman has to be what it means. There's 1 day, there's 1 week, there's 1 Shavua, there's 2 or 3 days. Why does it say 2 or 3? I don't know, but it's Dafka. So that now someone asked a question here on the Zoom. Why would someone make something hefker lizman muat? I'll give you a foolish thing that just came to my head. If a person has a pet and they have charata, which is normally the case, if Nebach, you bought a dog, you're mafkid it, but you have rachmanis. If no one will take it, it's going to die of hunger? No one takes it, it's back. I don't know. Well, what can you do? You bought it. You touched it, you bought it. All right, I just want to say like this. Before we go on to the next sugya, for people who came right now, without getting all of these big nuances that we learned today, Hefker Lizman, Chashin and Laharam, we learned big dinner by Hefker. How does Yush work? I just want to go back to the Mei Machloikas. The Mei Machloikas that we began, Rabbi Yossi, Rav Meir. Rabbi Yossi, Rav Meir. Forget about all of these things. When I say this is Hefker, not produce, this is Hefker. Is it ownerless right away? Yes, says Rav Meir. Says Rabbi Yossi, it's not ownerless right away. It's still mine. Elamah, my grip is not so strong. If it's mine and you take it, you're a ganef, you're a gazlan. If I say it's hefker, you have the right to take it. When you take it, it becomes then yours. Until then, it's still mine. How does Yush work? And we asking like Rav Meir. It's right away, not ownerless. And therefore, Eino Yachal Lachzer Boy. And therefore, let's go back to Midoy Raisa. If I say produce Hefkin and I take it back, Midoy Raisa, Potter Mimaisas. How does Yush work? So we said there's a Toisvis and Bava Kama and Daf Samach Vav Amadalov that says that Yush is not exactly like Hefker. What Toisvis is really saying is that even though by Hefker we pass like Rav Meir, Yush is like Rabbi Yosef. Which would mean that you can retract your Yush, which is a big topic. There is a Andaf Kuf Tezayin, I think. Where's Yakir? He's not here. At the end of Masechtas Bava Kama, there was a Gavaldic story that there was a caravan going through the desert, and God sent Benes, a lion, to protect them. But the Oilam decided the lion has to eat. They didn't want to be the food. Takanes. So every day someone else gave their chamor to the lion. Sure. Came Rab Safra's turn. He gave his chamor to the lion, and the lion didn't eat it. And the next morning, Rab Safra reacquired it. And the Gemara there is showing that he only reacquired it. I think the words are Larafka de Milsa. For no one, really, he didn't have to do it. The question, why didn't he have to do it? When he gave the donkey, he thought the lion is going to eat it. He gave up. Yush. And a chanami. But now that he saw that the lion didn't eat it, he retracted his helplessness, his hopelessness, because mamish and anachanami, and therefore he did not have to make a kinyan. He was zikr not mafked. He gave it to the lion. Okay, that will be one of the rayas, and that's a big topic amongst the Achronim regarding Yush, but that's more or less the way we're going to approach it. Okay, the next sugya is back to basics without any nuance. The second machlokes we had in the beginning of Beis Shammai was Kol Oimrei Hasad. All of the bundles was kav. And there was one bundle that was 4 times the size, 4 kavim, and the chacham, the worker, punked that one, he forgot. And the machlokes, Beis Shammai says, Eino shikha, Beis Hillel says shikha. Now, why would Beis Hillel say shikha? You don't need. Of course, he forgot it. Why would Beis Shammai say Eino shikha? I know that we spoke out, we learned the Marafulda, let's shell that, even though he wrote the Maskana. The Gemara is going to begin by giving us 2 options. Number 1, says the Gemara, Man nan kaimi. What are we dealing with? In other words, why would Beis Shammai say it's exempt from shikha? Option number 1 is davar mesuyam. Now, guys, davar mesuyam means that if you forgot something, let me use the words that with almost certainty, I know these words contradict each other, you will remember it. Again, let's use the Rebbe's template. The koyach, in other words, you didn't remember it now. You're going to remember it. Why? Because it's that much bigger than the other ones. That's called a davar mesuyim. Is it because Beis Shammai holds that a davar mesuyim can never become forgotten? Because since you will certainly or almost certainly remember it, it's as if you remembered it the whole time, as if that would be the logic, then you don't need it for it to be 4 times the size. That will be the Gemara's problem. Double the size is enough. Now, you can argue, why double? Why not 1.5? I was like, the Chazal understood that. When something is already double or more, it's so much bigger that how can you forget it? And even if you forgot it, you're gonna hop. You're gonna remember. The Gemara is asking then, even if the other bundle was 2 kav relative to all the others that were 1 kav, Beis Shammai also should have said Eino shikha. He didn't say it in 2. He said a dafka in 4. So what would be the other logic? And the other logic is what we read in the Marafulda. Mishum shura. There is a rule, my friends, that if you who are collecting the sheaves overlooked a whole row, an entire row, on an entire row, it's not shikha. Shlomazalene, right? You overlook the whole field. Doesn't work that way. Bachal, we said shikha is 1 or 2. Now, I have another question. What's the minimum bundles for you to say it's a shura? And the Gemara's kasha is based on lack of information that Beis Shammai is unique, everyone else holds that a row is comprised of 3 bundles or more. Everyone agrees to a din that if workers collecting the bundles, if they skipped an entire row, it's not shikha. What's the minimum of a row? Now we think everyone holds it's 3. Now, what did we read in the Penei Moshe or in the Mara folder in the Mishnah? And even though this is 1 bundle, since if you would have wanted the koyach, you could have made it into all of the other bundles are made out of 1 kav. It could have been the same size. The problem is they said 4. So if you would have made it into individuals, it would have been a row, and you can't have shikha in a row. If that's the reason, then Beis Shammai shouldn't have said 3. He shouldn't have said 4. He should have said 3. In other words, there's 2 options, but I have a kash on each side. Should have been 2, should have been 3. Why did we need to come to 4? So the Gemara says that Chad Bar Rabbanan, one of the Chabra in the yeshiva, said he said that he heard from Rabbi Yechanan, and in front of whom did he quote Rabbi Yechanan? In front of Rabbi Yechanan's brother-in-law, Rav Shimon ben Lakish. That you're missing information. Rabbi Yechanan discovered who told you that the minimum of a row is 3. Everyone, not Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai holds the minimum of a row is 4. So that answers. In other words, it's not because of Davar Mesuyim. Davar Mesuyim is not good enough of a reason. It's only because Royin Ki'ilu, it was individual, like the size of everything else. And yes, since everything is made out of a kav, if you would have bundled it separately, you need to have 4 because Beis Shammai holds Kol Shuhu Yachal L'Chol Kivin Lasois is Shura, but he added the words. It's not universal what a shura is. We thought everyone holds shura 3. You don't have to know. The shura of Beis Shammai is for. Look inside the Mara folder, the last one. Chad bar Rabbanan, Chad bar Beit Rabbanan, which means Talmud Rabbanan b'shum Rabbi Yechanan in front of Shimon Lakish that Beis Shammai lo have a shura pachas me'arba. No, actually, Beis Shammai holds that if you had a shura that's comprised of 3 and you forgot the shura, it is shikha. Dafka 4. That is what he answered. Now the Gemara is going to say something about it. Based on this answer, Daf Nun Aleph says Rabbi Yoino, and I know the words boye in the Babli always means an inquiry, and we already had in brachas a few times in the beginning that sometimes in the Yerushalmi, even though boye means a question, he made a statement. And I'll tell you why I understand here why he used the word boye. And let's read it and then I'll explain something. V'hu shiyura. V'hu shiyura means that you have to repeat this formula in any other proportion. Meaning, what happens if all of the other sheaves are 2 kav? Just an example. How big does this kav have to be? Does this bundle have to be for Beis Shammai to say yana shikha? And let me say the way I understand. If the reason of Beis Shammai would be davar mesuyam, even though the Gemara said before double should have been enough, but let's say it's a davar mesuyam. Beis Shammai holds that if it's less than 4 kav, it's not because it's bigger than the other ones. If it's less than 4 kav, who says you're going to remember it? I know it's double, but 4 kav or bigger is so big that you're gonna remember it. If that would be the logic, what happens if all the other bundles were 2, 2, 2, and this bundle was made out of 4? It's not because of the double. If the reason of Beis Shammai is because of a davar mesuyim, and we see in our Mishnah that what's a davar mesuyim 4 kav or more, then Beis Shammai also would have held that if you overlook the bundle of 4, einoi sheikha davar mesuyim. But since we established that no, it's not because of davar mesuyim, even though it's a davar mesuyim, if you forgot it now, the Torah says lo yisashud lekachtei. I don't care. Elomatz, because you have to make it into a shura, and the Beis Shammai a shura is 4, so the proportion of 4 times the size has to repeat itself, which means if all of the other bundles are made out of 2, how big does this one have to be for it not to be shikha? 8, and not less. 8. That kol oimrei hasada shal kav kav, which is the case of the Mishnah, then ve'echad shal arbas kav mushachachai. That is where Beis Shammai would say einoi shikha, and if this one would be not 4 kav but 3.5 kav, it wouldn't be shikha. because you have to make it into a row equal to the other ones. And therefore, if all of the other bundles of Shnei Kabin are made out of 2, how big does this have to be? It has to be 8 Kabin. If it would have been Davar Mesuyim, by Davar Mesuyim, we would never need to have 8, even on a lesser amount. We would say that Ein Sheikhab. What do we say? Royan. The Machlekes is Royan or Ein Royan. Royan means we look at what could have been, at the potential, the koyach, and Beisil Herds, you look at what is. You look at the reality. And that's why in the future, the halacha will be like Beishamai, because it's much better to live life not looking at what is, which normally is very Morosh Chaydadik, but you look at what could be. And you know what could be, guys? Mashiach can come today. That's what could be. All right, let's go, Daven.